Hey everyone, and welcome to the Koriffic Watchlist for the week of May 25th. I'm a little bit later to date, and that is just because it is a holiday in the US, and what I want to see is how the events over the weekend are going to continue unfolding. If you are not aware, the US and Iran are getting closer to the final deal, and that of course resulted in a massive move of about 1.37%. I'm looking right now in here on the chart. It was 1.37%, very great move. And as you can see, we are almost at the upper weekly expected move already. So there is a lot of the positive momentum, a lot of bullishness in the market. Based on this news, everyone wants the war to be over, and effectively what we're looking at is moving forward from this conflict in the long run right now. So from that standpoint, we moved quite aggressively. We went above the upper daily expected move, created a little bit of that hanging man candle, and then closed above it. And in here we do have a no-wick candle, which means that we probably are going to be coming back for that very shortly, especially if we do continue to hear more positive news within the market. So on the daily time frame last week, we essentially said that we're going to come down to this trend line and then bounce off of it and go to the weekly expected move, which is exactly what we did. So I am removing this piece from for now. We do have to think about what is our path going to be from now on, and the way that I see it is we probably are going to get to the upper weekly expected move, consolidate a little bit in here, and then potentially break out towards the end of the week on the PCE news as well as GDP news that are going to be coming in on Thursday, I believe. So in which case we are looking for a breakout. Interestingly and quite conveniently, we are looking at about 30K on NASDAQ Micros, which is going to be a big psychological number, and the fact that we see a reaction in here right away makes total and complete sense to me at the moment. So looking into the earnings, I don't think we have too much from the earnings standpoint. For this particular week, we do have Salesforce reporting on Wednesday. We do have Snowflake reporting, Marvell reporting, Synopsys, HP potentially. So a few tech companies, but we do have Dell also reporting on Thursday, and that is going to be an important one. But other than that, not too much. A few Canadian banks also are going to be reporting. But the main catalyst really is going to be PCE on whatever is happening with the war in Iran. So looking at the structure from the broader perspective within the market, stocks, you see a breakout in here from this consolidation, and that ultimately signals continuation to me. SMH similar. XLV, I pointed this out last week to myself. I actually did not talk about it in my weekly video, but you can see how it broke out and it's already created this window right here. And potentially it's accelerating somewhat upwards towards this area. I wouldn't enter it at this point unless you do put a stop loss right below this window right here. So the trade idea, if you were to enter here, would be something along these lines. So you're hoping that the window is going to hold the price, and in which case it actually becomes quite a nice R&R. We do have equal highs right here, and naturally we do have quite a bit of buying interest or selling interest up at 155. So quite a nice move of about 3% with a risk of 1% or 3 to 1 RR. XAR, which is defensives, also is breaking out from the structure. Hasn't quite triggered just yet, but it looks like it might do so very soon. So I'm going to put an alert in here, and we are really ultimately looking for a snapping of this wick right here, but we actually might not be able to make it depending on how this wick holds and how this most traded zone is going to react in here. It is very likely. HG did not do too well. It kind of got rejected back, but it held right here the 20T, and we do have a very strong piercing pattern right here. It's one of the reversal signals that is strong and consistent, and we're looking for a continuation upwards. IWM hasn't broken out in here, and we're watching the structure very carefully. Less important to us for now. XLY did do a turnaround from the most traded zone, and with a very, very strong candle, and that's discretionaries. And I guess that sort of makes sense that if the Hormuz is going to open, then we don't have to worry too much about discretionary spending, at least in the US, but we'll see how this goes. Thus far, it has been only making higher or lower highs and lower lows. So lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high potentially. So if this reverses, then we continue going towards 108, which was the initial target for the trade idea. XLF has been quite interesting. So, you know, the financials have been quite beat down, but we do see quite a bit of momentum and turnaround happening right now in this sector, as well as IGV, which we have been writing. So if this actually does show a breakout, which I don't really like this candle for a breakout, but it did break out from the trend, from this downward sloping trend, I think that we might go and try to snap this wick right here at 53. Not the worst risk reward, but what we would want to do is potentially a retest initially. And let's structure this trade right now live. And you have about 2-hour trade, and that is if we do something like this. To make the trade a little bit better, what you could do is essentially put the invalidation point behind this wick right here. And the main reason is because it is protected by free MAs that are right below. And then you also have the most traded zone. It also is below the sloping line, and that actually presents a 4-to-1 very nice trade that could potentially work out in the favor. If financials weren't this week right now, that actually would be a very, very nice trend. Looking into the weekly time frame, it actually is almost signaling turnaround to me. Like I'm looking at this and I'm like, hey, our financial actually doesn't look that bad. We do have equal lows in here, which could be swept, but nevertheless, if that were the case in here, it actually shows that we can go a little bit higher in 4-hour chart, which presents quite an excellent R&R opportunity if we were actually to come back and retest this trend line right here. So that's good. XLE is still in its consolidation somewhat. Not liking it, wanted to move faster, but you know, like we are where we are. So beggars can be choosers. And DXY, of course, has been an interesting idea overall. You know, I already wrote this one a little bit earlier with some of these like upward movements. And thus far, we are testing the 20T multiple times on a very broad time horizon. We actually, every single time we come down to this area, we bounce from here, and we have a pretty damn massive move of a very huge magnitude. So if we were to get something like that, we definitely are going to get to 20T and potentially go even higher. My anticipation, 20T is probably going to be the first target, and this is 722R that I am checking out right now on US dollar. And I potentially will be playing this through UUPU. Anyways, see what I did there. Finally, a lot of people are asking me about BTC and what I think about it. I don't really think about it, but what is going on in here is that if you look at it on the daily chart, what do you see? You see a clear channel, and people are like, oh, this is gonna, like, it's all over. Like, somebody actually messaged me today and they're like, BTC and crypto is done. But take a look at the structure, right? It's like, can you actually say that it is done just yet? I can't, right? It's like it essentially goes and touches the same trend line on the bottom, same trend line at the top, and it just bounces between the two. So this bounce was pretty powerful. In here, you have a nice wick in here, piercing pattern, I think more than 50% of the candle. You have almost 3 white soldiers. The last one didn't quite close above. But is it out of this world to think that we're going to actually get to this 20T time point? And if we're to structure the trade, go above here, the stop loss maybe around here, and then we have go all the way to the 200T or potentially even higher, right? It's like 10% move. That could be pretty crazy. about 2R if we do consider something like that as a move for us. So I would say Bitcoin is not done yet. Unless it breaks through this trend line, I would say that it would be very hard for me to start being bearish on it. But at the same time, unless it breaks above this trend line above, it's very hard for me to be bullish on it. So right now, I am somewhat bullish on Bitcoin for it to cross here and then continue going upwards. And the more we hear from Iran and the US making a peace deal, the more likely the money is actually going to come back into Bitcoin. Bitcoin is quite an interesting piece altogether. So let's review some trade ideas from last week. So one of the things that I called out was Figma. Still hasn't fully validated, and we need to capture this 50T before we're able to go for the highs. So I would almost say that we need to go above the previous Friday's high right here, and once we close above the 50T, we do have a pretty nice move, about 38% and 2R. So this is still an active trade idea. Nvidia was something that people were talking about, and I had this idea for quite a bit of time already with an initial breakout. But what we do have right now is this very sharp trend line and a series of higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. So right now what I'm going to be watching for is a reaction at this trend line, and if the reaction is good, it's very difficult to think that we are going to go all the way to 261. So very nice potential move for Nvidia, and the trade idea, I didn't enter it quite yet, would be something along these lines. So now we're improving in this idea right here, essentially creating the stop loss around this area, and then what we're watching is for a reaction here. If we do see a good strong reaction, we can have a pretty massive R&R opportunity on Nvidia. ZS already started moving, called it out last week, looks very good, definitely going to get to 200 and then potentially even higher. So because it's already moving, there's no point for me to talk about. I'm going to remove it from the list. XLY thought there's going to be a breakdown. It did break down, but it was a false breakdown. And right now we will be watching on whether it is going to continue developing downwards or if it is printing a bull flag, which is something that might be the case actually with all the new positive news, in which case what we will be looking at is a projection higher rather than lower and moving in this direction right now. But once again, we always look for confirmation. Remember how this thing never really truly confirmed for us. So now what we're going to be looking for is a confirmation to go and snap that wick of 2.1R. Amazon, still similar story. We're looking at consumer discretionary. It did close below the 20T. Hasn't invalidated. I have not quite entered it just yet, but if it does continue going lower, then there's a good chance that we actually are going to melt down to 50T, which is going to be the trade idea. UNP hasn't quite triggered yet, and we're still waiting to get into this position, or perhaps it did trigger, but I just did not react. And here you have the retest of the trend line. It hasn't been the strongest retest, but the next candle did close above the previous one, which is a good sign for continuation above if you follow the Japanese candlestick methodology. Very good projection, very good box, and on a weekly time frame, this looks like a cup and handle with a little consolidation in here, and on a monthly time frame, it's a big consolidation, and we're just breaking out of it. So absolutely looks like a very good move that can emerge for UNP. Mara already started moving, recaptured, did pretty much exactly what I was expecting, maybe a little bit lower, came down, recovered, and is off to the races. Removing that right now. Rigetti, I called it out on this day right here, and that was Thursday. So in 2 days, you could have snapped about 27%, and I do these call outs in my newsletter on Substack, which you can see in the comments down below if you wanted to subscribe to get some of these amazing trade ideas. Very good. and fast move. And these are the types of moves that you like, right? It's like you get into the position and then you just essentially ride it, and it's just absolutely beautiful and bombastic. All right, so two names that I have for you all for this time around is Aehr test systems. They are electronic product equipment, and what you do have a consolidation right here, a capture of the 20T. We're almost above this most traded zone, and ultimately we're looking at a projection right here to snap this wick right here at 108, and then 120, and then 131. So this is a 35% move around the bull bear line with a risk of about 10%, and that's about 3.59 R. Very nice move, and as you can see, the stock, when it starts moving, it moves very aggressively, and this projection ultimately is kind of a similar idea that it's just going to... next up, we do have another one. Another idea is Almonte. If you remember, I played it a little bit earlier in the year. We do have very massive moves. We came down, retested the trend line, moves again, came down, retested the trend line, recaptured to 200T, and now we are moving towards its 50T and then 20T. So from that perspective, this can actually go and continue going a little bit higher. Very interesting investment right now, and ultimately what we're looking at is the continuation of this beautiful, beautiful reversal. I do have some trade ideas VIP, and those are going to be ultimately shared with subscribers to my private community that is on the Substack. And in there, I am going to be sharing another, I believe, 5 or 6 trade ideas that look pretty nice. That if you want to access it, then I suggest that you join my community as well, and for my newsletter as well, and I would be happy to share with you what I'm thinking about in there. Other than that, I hope that this analysis has been quite fruitful for you, and you are figuring out how you're going to be navigating a week in the market. Make sure that you are liking and subscribing this video, because that is going to allow me to reach more audience and help a lot more other people. As you can see, majority of the material I'm giving away completely for free, and there are just a few ideas and some deeper details of my system that I'm reserving for my private community, the people who actually wanted to learn from me as we move forward. Anyways, so Koriffic is out, but don't forget to like, subscribe to on YouTube, and of course follow me on Substack, where I provide my thoughts in a different format and also share my probably the best trade ideas that I have on the ongoing basis. Cheers, y'all.